What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. We're live here on a Friday afternoon on
Yes, sir.
DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube and Twitter channels. Guys, the same way we start each and every one of our shows. If you're new to the channel, if you're not, do us a favor, share it with your friends, family, any other Philadelphia sports fans that you may know of. Check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button, and then check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to every social media platform that we are available on. Check out the link, check out the YouTube channel specifically, to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here with us. I'm one half of your host, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, my guy. Happy Friday. We got some fun conversations to get into today. We're going to pick up a conversation that we left Wednesday's show with and see where the commenters and the viewers are at with it now. But what's going on?
Yeah, we got to sleep on it. That's always a good thing to do when you're thinking about big decisions to make. Just sleep on it. See how you feel in the morning with a fresh mind, and go back at it, reevaluate. But happy Friday, man. I'm happy to be here. We're going into a nice big weekend. I'm going to kind of like reset my life in a sense for March and, get back into like a workout routine. I was like very inconsistent.
I feel
start
you, bro.
the year.
I mean, you get back in, I'll get back in.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to get back to that this weekend, just kind of get my life back in order after vacation this past weekend. But man, I'm happy to be here with you despite like what feels like a technically a downtime just because of the Sixers. So, but once again, still living high off that Eagles Super Bowl win. It won't stop. It won't stop. My smile won't go away, man. When we hop on this show specifically, the Phaithful Fanatic, because it's about the entire city of Philadelphia, which includes those Super Bowl champion Eagles. But I'm excited to get into some Phillies talk with you because I think they're in a very interesting and perplexing spot going into this season, just as far as expectations, contention, and big years for guys, right? Big years in certain guys' parts of their careers. So it's going to be fun to get into that as we get closer to the season. Matvei Michkov the other night, 2 goals and an assist.
Yeah,
I see you got the Flyers shirt on. I got hip to that this morning. Was watching some highlights. There's a little excitement there. The Flyers or the Sixers right now, man. Where are you at? Right. Like Flyers or Sixers? Who's closer?
Well, who's closer is a tough ask. For me, there's at least a direction when it comes to this. When it comes to the Flyers,
maybe that's the better, better way to phrase it.
It's nowhere near process Sixers, right? Like they're not bad. They're in fact, they're over 500 in the win-loss column, and then you have the third column for overtime losses. So they're technically a below 500 team, but they're kind of middle of the pack when it comes to the Metro Division. You're seeing the talent of Michkov displayed, a little bit of the young talent as well.
They compete.
Yeah,
and I think that's something as a young team, right? You can live off of that for a year or a season or two.
Sure,
right?
And then I think they have like 5 draft picks upcoming in this class, man. Which is where you can't miss, right? You cannot with at the top of this draft class for Danny and for Jonesy. So they have to start to get on the right direction, but they're definitely in a more positive direction, I guess, than the Sixers when you take into account injuries and contracts for that plan. So definitely something to look into. But
I was just going to say, it's one of those things. I know we're not going to talk about the Sixers too much today. That's why I kind of just wanted to get it out. It's one of those things, man, where if we can just get some type of certainty with Joel Embiid and his future, then maybe we can be a little bit more optimistic going into next season. But we're in a bad spot right now.
I'm at a point now, man, with this whole Joel saga. And I don't know, after Wednesday's show, when we kind of thought and alluded to the fact that it's so close to official that he's being shut down, see the reports, not by Centel, by Central, that they're not willing to go that route just yet. And there's optimism for the 10s.
Like, what's the deal?
It's an entire clusterfuck right now. The spot I'm at with this whole Joel saga and hope in the future and this organization, man, is I would be so happy to look like a fool in a year or two. Like, I've never been a trade Joel Embiid guy. you're getting pennies on the dollar at this point if you do move in another direction this offseason or whatever. I don't think it's going to happen. If he gets one of these big procedures done soon, he could miss most, if not all, of next year, Scotty. Like, you're talking age 33 Joel Embiid coming off of one of the biggest surgeries ever of his career, and he's been through a lot. What does it look like? When I say I would happily look like a fool, because like, he's so talented. It would just be so on par for us to go down and finally everyone hit rock bottom. We're done with this. We're move on. And then in a year and a half from now, Joel Embiid looks like the best player on a nightly basis. And we're a top 4. Like, I would gladly look like a fool in a year or two. I just don't think that's happening. And I think we're just headed for even darker times as
I do feel you. To your point, I've gone through the thought process of, like, do you try to sell Embiid? Like, could you pair Embiid with your first round pick to get a higher pick in the draft? Like, I was thinking of some wild things. I'm not going to get disrespectful with Joel Embiid, but we just really don't know what value he's at, or if he has any value with the rumors that are going on right now. I'm sure
there's just no way, bro. There is
some team like that maybe would give it a shot, but, like, is he going to sign off and go in there? You gave him this 5-year extension. I'm sure there's some type of, like, no trade clause on his end in there as well, right? Like, it's something like he would have to sign off. To your point, there's no point in really even thinking about it. I think the one thing that you could get positive out of this season for the Sixers is if it's a give or take, right? Because if Paul George plays better down the stretch, that means they're going to worsen their draft contention, I would imagine, right? Like, there's going to be wins mixed in there. Maybe there's going to be wins mixed in there that you just don't want to win, right? But yeah, to your point, we've lost to the Nets, the Bulls recently, so that may not be true. But my point is, with Paul George playing the rest of the season, had a decent night the other night against New York, 25, I think he had in that one. 7 turnovers, but still better than what he's been.
Much better.
Maybe he can increase his valuable to where it's, like, tradable. I'm not getting my, like, hopes.
It's just so completely sad that these are the options that we're exploring at the moment when it comes to these two big contracts. And, here's the last thing I'll say about Joel before we move on, and the Sixers as a whole, is, like, I don't understand what the pause is, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not we're 2 games or whatever it is out of the 10 seed, which means we have a fighting chance to make the playoffs, which means we get these 3 in the playoffs together. Let's just see what happens. That's not it. It's not, let's hope the swelling goes down. Brother, go and put on the Nets film.
Yeah. And
if that is the Joel Embiid you are getting, you have no chance of winning a game in the postseason. No, you don't have a chance of winning many games to end the regular season to even get in to the play-in tournament. If that's what his body is doing right now, it doesn't matter. So I don't know what this pause is in, we're not giving up yet. Dude, it should have happened months ago. It should have happened weeks ago. It needs to happen now. Shut him down. Get whatever procedure that gives him the best fighting chance to come back at some point in his career and try to win. But this is getting so tiring to talk about.
Does it sound like to you when Nick Nurse is doing, like, press conferences, does he sound like a coach that is, like, worried about his job? Like, to me, he doesn't. Just to, like, give you, like, where I'm at, it doesn't sound like a guy
I don't know that Nick Nurse cares all too much right now when I hear him speak.
That could be part of it.
And when you
just wonder if
here's where
they talked about, like, this is a 2-year window, this is a 3-year window, so, like, it's not, everything's not on the table this season. Like, is it one of those things? But it can't be if you're pushing Joel Embiid back out there. Like, it can't be, right?
Right. And look, when I hear Nick Nurse speak, just going off of tone and vibe, right? There's no wonder that the Sixers play with the lack of effort that they look like they play with right now. Like, they look on the floor like their coach speaks right now. And so this,
man, this isn't the answer.
Because at this point, Martian, I think if you're, so what? We're trying to pair KD with Maxey and Joel. Well, Joel can't play.
Right. Yeah.
Is KD and Maxey getting you to a chip this year? If not, then there's no chance I'm trading McCain, a top 5 pick. And the PG part is mush at that point, but Yeah,
but it's one of those things, man. I know we didn't even plan to talk about this. It's hard not to right now. But if I was Daryl Morey, if this is a plan, they're all continuing into next year. The idea has to be to get youth in here around Maxey, around PG, around Embiid. They like PG and Embiid are the veterans. Like they're your superstars, your pillars of the organization as well, along with Maxey. But they also are the veteran experience. So we don't need to bring in the Eric Gordon's old ass, the Kyle Lowry's old ass, Andre Drummond old ass.
Like, Quentin Grimes under contract next year?
He needs to be a priority to bring him back along with this unit. I like his fit next to Maxey. He plays defense.
If he's not an automatic to return, if he's not under contract for next year, I was going to ask, like, when you look back on the deadline and what we're talking about, getting a little bit more youthful. Not that this dude's young, but
I know what you mean.
Was it stupid to trade Caleb Martin at that point?
If they do not bring Quentin Grimes back, yes, right. I do believe so. Because, like, you sit here and you look at guys like Kelly Oubre that are still in the roster, and I think I would rather have Caleb. Like, Kelly puts up like decent numbers, but he does some really, really dumb things on the basketball court. His IQ is really low.
Yeah.
I think Caleb Martin is more of a winning basketball player, if that makes sense.
And I'm just
maybe that's why the Mavs wanted him.
Contract for 4 years. You'd have 3 more years if you are trying to go a little bit more youthful in the future. I think the fit with Maxey could have been there going for. I don't know. Not like, look, Caleb Martin was not playing well this season.
It's not. Yeah, it's not like a huge regret. No. And I do think, man, like Quentin Grimes with a healthy Joel, right? With a healthy PG, with Maxey, he fits pretty well. He's a taller, bigger guard. He can defend. He can hit the 3-point shot. He does a little dirty thing. So not that he's the answer at like shooting guard or anything like that, but he can be a valuable piece off the bench to add towards the youth going forward.
When you think of Quentin Grimes, you just think of like a dude that would annoy you coming off the bench for like the Knicks and hitting big threes in the second half.
Exactly.
Like that's what you think of. So there's definitely a role here for him in the future.
Yabu Sele, there's a role there for him.
Like what you just went through, I'm pretty like my mouth is going to start to like go to mush every time I say this sentence because I'm so tired of having to say it. Yeah. If Joel's healthy and if PG is, I mean, my God, man, like, yes, I feel for the person that is Joel Embiid. It sucks for him. His legacy's getting tarnished. It sucks. But like, let's not act like this is something new and it's this major colossal injury. It's every fucking year we're doing this, and I'm tired. I'm over it. I'm not tired in it in the sense of get him the fuck out of here. I can't stand this. The dude, he's out of shape. It's none of that. I feel bad, but my God, man, we can't keep doing it.
It's one of those things where now I think you have to, if you weren't already, which you should have been, honestly, you have to start thinking outside of the build around Joel model. Right, like it has to be beyond that. Like, bro. It has to be beyond that. This team needs to be built around. I said this
the other day when you were rebooting the Come On. That window that we talked about, it probably started 3 years ago. Yeah. That window we talked about, we probably realistically just gave it till now. Like healthy, we were probably only talking about like now or a year from now was this Joel-led window.
Yeah,
I don't know what procedural route he is going. I don't know all the timelines. I saw there are 2 options.
Yeah.
The one option is like whatever, I forget, what it is, but it would be 6 to 8 months recovery, right? The other is, like I mentioned, and Martian had it in the comments earlier, something they do, removing a piece of his hip.
Yeah.
And it realigns something, the knee, the meniscus, it realigns his body, whatever the hell it is. Scotty, that is a year plus recovery time.
Yeah.
You go that
if he
route,
recovers.
which is the better route for the future, but you go that route, that means this year done, next year done. By the time he plays legitimate basketball again, it's going to be 2027.
Yeah,
and he's 34 years old.
There's no, I would have to look this up to know for certain, but I'm willing to guess that this surgery probably doesn't even have an 80+%, efficiency rate of him actually like being able to return to play in the NBA. Like, just thinking of the lateral quickness that you have.
And here's the thing, bro. It's I'm pretty sure, I don't want to like speak out of pocket. Like, I don't know anything about this. From what I read, and again, this is, online and Twitter, who the fuck knows? But from what I read, like, this is rare. Like, if he goes that procedure, it's a rare procedure to get done.
Yeah. It's like a shot in the dark. Right?
So it's like, who knows? It's just very frustrating to talk about. I think back, man, I was working at Rally House a few years ago, and I'll never forget when we traded Harden and all the Harden merch came in, and just being so excited for that time, and, being up 3-2 against Boston. And you have so many good memories and hopeful memories of the Sixers team, and they just had disappeared like that. But I guess if we sold their soul to win a Super Bowl,
Harden was the
10
peak.
times out of 10.
James Harden was the peak, man. Because the one thing, and I'm willing to walk back, pretty much everything I said about James Harden, quite honestly. Because Daryl Morey looks like a fraud. He looks like a liar. James Harden was our peak as far as like taking the Celtics to 7 games. Like, that was our peak in the second round. I get it, but that was the best chance that we have ever had towards getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah. They came up short, but one thing that Harden proved, he could win a game without Joel Embiid on the court. And that's something that this team, this model definitely can't do. It's just so weird, man, because how did they stay afloat last year? Was Maxey that much better last year? Like, that much more efficient?
But I don't know how, like, when Maxey just went on this ridiculous stretch of 30+ in however many straight games, like,
it doesn't make sense. I guess you just have to attribute it to like bad IQ, and I don't even know.
I'll take it a step further. He is a much better player still than Paul George.
Just his organization of the game, like passing ability, makes him better than Paul George. Like, let alone his ability to score occasionally, hit 30+ points in one night. The guy
he's averaging 22 on the year on, it's not great shooting. It's under 40% from the floor, 35 from 3-point land, 8.5 assists, 6 rebounds, a steal and a half, and almost a block per game. But like you said, in this last little stretch they have up here, he's got 24, 31, 30, 32, 23, 22. Like, so he's let's just say he's much better.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. When you read those numbers out loud, it disgusts me, man, because you just look back at yourself in the moment, and I just feel foolish, right? For even like turning my back on James Harden. There were people out there that said that was a mistake. And of course, I just want to entrust in the Sixers. I will say that I don't think that's something I can do anymore, man. Like, we have this unwavering faith in Howie Roseman, but
not at all.
No matter what they do this offseason, outside of getting like a top 5 draft,
I'll tell you the other thing.
There's nothing they can do that's like, I'm going to be like, yes, we're back in it. Like, there's nothing.
And we'll move on after this, but it like almost, I don't even want to say it, because again, like I do want to be foolish, and we know the talent that is Joel Embiid. Like, I get it. But man, we're going down this list now of, man, I feel foolish when it comes to the Harden thing. And now, man, I feel foolish when it comes to PG. PG fooled us. And man, I feel like, I remember I hated Jimmy when Jimmy left.
Yeah.
And whatever. And then, Tobias looking the way he does. I mean, he's a role player, but like, you get what I'm saying. Scotty, let's call it what it is, man. There's one common denominator.
Yeah.
How many times over the last 7 or 8 years am I going to say, yeah, good riddance, Jimmy, fuck you, this is Joel's team.
Yeah.
Yeah, good riddance, James, fuck you, this is Joel's team. Oh, Paul fooled us. This is whatever. We need another player around Joel. Oh, it's not Brett Brown. It's not Doc Rivers. It's not Nick Nurse. We need another coach. How many times? Like, I know the talent that is.
Yeah.
Never been. I don't know.
You're spot on, man. And the other thing I'll throw out there, because you mentioned Jimmy Butler. If it comes out after this season that there was any chance that you could have made a move for Jimmy Butler at the deadline or leading up to it, and it include Paul George, yeah, I think my thing here, yes, Josh Harris, I saw in the comments the owner should sell. I think the problem does start at the top, but
for sure,
I do think Daryl Morey could be the guy that falls on the sword here, along with Elton Brand and so on and so forth. But I don't know, man. Just not even going after Jimmy in the first place, signing Paul George, right? Like, you look at what Jimmy's doing.
Revisionist history is a bitch. At the time,
there's no point in it. There's no point in it.
But again, it's tough. And I know we're going a ways back talking about Jimmy Butler in 2017, 2018. Like the Eagles won their first Super Bowl back then. That's how long ago Jimmy was a Sixer, 2019 maybe. But the point is that is the common denominator. And I do agree with TR. Like, it's not a common denominator on he's the problem. When he's on the floor, he's the problem. It's we keep for the past decade, we have defended, it's going to get better. Just get X, Y, and Z around him, and the injuries have to get better. And they haven't, and they've gotten worse, and it's just whatever, man. But let's move on. 20 minutes on that dreadful situation is enough for me today.
I do just want to say one thing to TR's comment, because I think it's fair, but once again, if Daryl Morey could just have his job doing exactly what everybody in the fan base would do, and just seeing everything exactly the way the fan base did, you're right, TR. I said last offseason that it was better that we signed Paul George off the street than trade for Jimmy. But if you are Daryl Morey, the president of basketball for the Sixers, you need to see further than that. You need to see more than that, and you need to see better than what I can see. So at the end of the day, I know it sounds like I'm shedding accountability. No, I was wrong as fuck. But so was Daryl Morey, and it is his job that he's being paid for, so he's going to fall on the sword, ultimately. Right, and I do agree. It is all up to Joel. If Joel was healthy, MVP, it could change the whole dynamic, I guess. This team is
the issue with this piece together with everything else. That's the problem with Daryl Morey. It's not just in hindsight, Paul George shouldn't have been given a max and trade for Jimmy or whatever. It's the last 3 to 4 years of Daryl Morey being here. It's the non-aggression at each and every trade deadline. It's the head scratchers at each and every trade deadline. And then the one trade deadline you were aggressive on, which was getting Ben out of here and bringing James in, which was a great fucking move. You then, you brought James Harden here. Almost single-handedly, you, the person, brought James Harden here, right? And then you single-handedly walked James Harden out of the door because whatever went on behind closed doors. And now that's looking foolish, right?
Yeah.
James Harden's not a 76er if the relationship with Daryl Morey isn't here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But then whatever the fuck you promised, whatever happened behind closed doors, now you let that walk, and now we are 18,000 steps behind where we were at that point when Harden was here. That's the truth of it all. So it's a lot of mistakes Daryl Morey has made over the last 3 years. And it started off great, man. And he's hit in the draft, right? He drafted Max. He drafted Jared McCain.
Yeah.
There's a couple diamonds in the Justin Edwards could I get it. Shedding the Horford contract when he first got here. But it's just
the lesser of the moves, even this past offseason, were better than the major moves that were made this past offseason. And I think that's what it is, right? He's hitting in the cracks in a sense, right? With Yabu and Jared McCain in the draft.
Yeah.
But the bigger stars is where we're having the issue. And, like TR said, it's not all on Daryl's shoulders.
No, and I think that's been a problem going back to Hinkie. I think it's been a problem when Colangelo was here. Let's be honest, bro. Let's go. What is Joel Embiid? He is Joel the Process Embiid, right? And I saw Tyrone bring this up on the Fanatic yesterday. The process is now a 1,000% failure. Yes, it changed Sixers basketball. We were relevant again. It got us Joel Embiid. The process got us a dude that can't stay on the floor. And what I mean is, like, they've hit in the cracks in certain spots, Scotty. But every major, like, let's not kid ourselves that, like, the only high draft pick we had and hit on was Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, Jahlil Okafor. That's 3 more years of top 3 draft picks. 2 more number ones. And you are sitting here X amount of years removed from all those scenarios without any of those dudes on the team. They have continuously whiffed in big moments. They make a trade for Jimmy Butler. It looks perfect. There's internal issues with Jimmy Butler. They make a move for James Harden. It looks good. We get deep. Internal issues with James Harden. They just keep whiffing on the big stuff. But
they're a bad organization. That's what it comes down to. They're a horrible organization. They've had a ton of talent in here. They've had a ton of opportunities to get more talent in here. They've made wrong decisions. I don't know. I guess TR is not wrong about Daryl Morey. Like, I don't know, man. I guess my thing is, I'm sitting here, I'm looking around the league, and I look at the teams that are good right now. You got the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have some youth on that team, man. Like, Evan Mobley is young. Yeah. Darius Garland is young. I'm looking at the Boston Celtics. It speaks for themselves. We know what they have. The New York Knicks are fairly young in a sense, right? The core. The Pacers are young. The Bucks have gotten better since getting younger with Dame Lillard and with Giannis. The Detroit Pistons are young as fuck. Like, Cade Cunningham's their lead guy. The Orlando Magic, Paolo and Franz. You go over to the West, OKC's young as hell. Memphis, young as hell. The Houston Rockets, young as hell. So there is a bit of a youth movement. And I don't mean when it comes to your star players. You could have Joel Embiid, you could have Paul George, and then, of course, Maxey is our youth when it comes to the star selection. But fill in around these guys with young guys that can bring some damn energy. Because that's what they look like on a night-to-night basis, man. They're just lethargic. They're old. They are washed up. Like, and it's not just that, like, PG is washed. Eric Gordon's also washed, and Andre Drummond's washed.
And that's silly me, right? Like, I was excited when they brought these guys in, but I'm sitting here playing 2K Manager, thinking of the namesakes, and that's not how you're supposed to do it. And to TR's point, like, those teams have hit on a bunch.
TR's spot on.
But when you say luxury, like, that's not a luxury, bro. Like, that's your job.
You're
supposed to do. So I'm sitting here telling you we've whiffed on first round draft pick, first overall, third overall. 2018, 2019 was right around when Jimmy was here. Toby, Joel, Ben. You draft Mikal Bridges. His mom works in the building. You trade him for fucking Zaire Smith.
Yeah.
Like, you just keep whiffing.
Yeah.
Maxey, fantastic. McCain, hopeful. Like, and that's 3 draft picks in a decade that have worked.
To TR's point, it's almost that you just wish Daryl Morey might have been here sooner, right? To use those draft picks in those high spots and make better decisions. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he does, right? Maybe
I just think of other guys, man. Like you mentioned, in the cracks. Like, you, oh my God, you drafted Isaiah Joe.
Yeah.
The coach wouldn't play him. You trade Isaiah Joe. Isaiah Joe's on the number 1 team in the Western Conference, splashing threes.
Playing meaningful minutes, right?
I mean, I'm not trying to go too far back and just, throw any name at the wall, but a guy like Landry Shamet. I've watched Landry Shamet in Phoenix and elsewhere make threes in playoff games, and it's like you've hit on cracks and you keep fucking it up. So
yeah,
whatever. Speaking of contracts, man.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's get back to
we spent
where
30 minutes on that
no.
shithole. Yeah, that's what we just did.
Sorry. Real quick, we don't have to stay on this topic long because we did hit on it on Wednesday.
Yeah. What's up?
And look, I don't know. The Eagles have about $22 million in cap space before going over this offseason. Obviously, the Myles Garrett trade is being talked about and it's picking up steam. And if he doesn't stay in Cleveland, which Cleveland apparently is trying to throw numbers at him that no one has ever seen to get him to stay, but he and his agents have said there is no negotiating. I do not want to be here. We'll see how that plays out. Outside of Cleveland, it seems like it's the NFC East. It's us and it's the Commanders are the two biggest teams in play for Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
We brought up what that could look like. You sent a trade for Myles Garrett. What is Myles Garrett also looking for? A contract extension. What does that look like down the line? What does that look like this year? We know Josh Sweat, 99% on his way out the door. Milton Williams, 99% on his way out the door. Those two are moving on. The big name, Howie said they're making it a priority, is Zach Baun. I want Zach Baun back almost more than anything. The question we brought up, TR, if you weren't in here on Wednesday, if you're still in here, is would you trade for Myles Garrett if it meant you cannot re-sign Zach Baun? Now, like I said, there's a way, $22 million in cap space. I don't know the deal that Garrett's willing to take on a winning team. I don't know what Baun's number is going to look around 3 for 40, what it could look like. There's probably a way Howie can do both. But the question is one or the other. And the only reason I brought it up, and I love Zach Baun, bro. We don't have a Super Bowl without Zach Baun.
Yeah.
We don't. But it's Myles fucking Garrett. And that's where I sit here so frustrated. It's because it's tugging on the heartstrings. I don't want to sound like I would just throw Zach Baun in the garbage if it meant getting Myles Garrett. The dude had, what did he do in the postseason? 2 INTs and a fumble recovery. In the regular season, 3.5 sacks as a linebacker, 5 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, and a pick. Top 5 DPOY candidate. But it's Myles Garrett. I'll just read these numbers to you. Going back to 2018. 13.5, 10, 12, 16, 16, 14, 14. Now, you want to talk DPOY? That's DPOY. And I'm thinking of him next to Jalen Carter and next to Nolan Smith. Where has your mind gone since Wednesday, man?
It's funny, man. I think I think I came into the show more confident that it would be Myles Garrett, but I look at Baun's numbers and I take a step back, man. Like the linebacker, the fit within Vic Fangio's defense, it's Myles Garrett though, right?
Yeah,
maybe the best defensive player in the NFL. Maybe. I mean,
now I will say
clean swap, yes. Clean swap, yes.
To TR's point, Scotty brought this up on Wednesday. If trading and extending Myles Garrett means losing Zach Baun and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat now, and then a year from now not being able to bring back Jalen Carter, then no, I'm not talking about that. I'm just assuming Howie the Wizard, Howie the Magical can do his thing where it's one or the other right now. Yeah. And in the future, those guys, Nolan, Jordan, like whatever.
Because I think Jalen Carter is my line that you don't cross, right? Like that's the one you don't fuck with that one. And that is my baseline. As long as like a Myles Garrett deal does not impact Jalen Carter's extension, I think at the end of the day, I could either reason my way through it or be happy with it. And once again, I just don't think Howie's going to do it if it does impact Jalen Carter. Yeah, and it's not to say that like Jalen Carter's better than Myles Garrett. It's just to say Jalen Carter's on a hell of a track right now, trajectory, and he's younger. And that's what it comes down to. He's going to be the core of your defense for the next 5 to 10 years, you would like when you think of Fletcher Cox and how long he was here and how long he held down the middle of our defensive line. So Jalen Carter is that level of player, but I think they could get it done without it impacting Jalen Carter, but it's interesting, man, because my head, goes to other places as well. Obviously, when you start to think about Myles Garrett, one thing you think about is, potentially there's been talks about bringing Hassan Reddick back for a lesser price. I don't think I would go that route.
No,
There's talks about Harold Landry, if you could trade for him. He's been a double-digit sack guy down in Tennessee. You could probably get him for a lot less than Myles Garrett just because of the simple name value that Garrett carries.
I'm telling you, the only thing I throw in there, bro, is I think people are undervaluing what has occurred across leagues over the last half decade to decade. If he tells Cleveland, I am done, I am not negotiating, that drives price this way. I'm not saying it drives it through the fucking ground, but that drives price this way. You can either move me for something or I'm not playing, and you can find me whatever you want. I'm not coming back. And that's going to drive the price down in itself. And it's very tough. I agree. If it meant wagering the future, Myles Garrett versus the field for us, and we're not going to be able to really do anything with our younger guys in the future, and Baun and those guys are going this offseason, then it's a no. But I just, like, to TR's point about wanting the money, no one knows what's going on in Myles Garrett's mind. There's a rumor out there that Cleveland's willing to throw him 35 to 40 a year.
Yeah.
Making him the richest defensive player ever. And he's saying, I'm not negotiating.
Yeah. I do. I think it would have to be a situation where Myles says, I want Philadelphia. Like, I think that's what it would ultimately have to come down to, because I'm just thinking about this like little competition or race with Washington that we're kind of buying into, at least by the rumors right now. And I don't know. It could get to that perplexing point where, this deal I wouldn't offer necessarily, but do you want Washington to get him? And
correct.
I just don't know if that is a healthy way to go about things either, right? Like putting ourselves up against Washington when we're in two completely different situations, but it could come down to that ultimately. I think what's interesting as well, man, is when you start thinking about some of the other options that come to mind when thinking about making a move for Myles Garrett. I'll shout out Kelly Greenhour on X for this one, but I found it very interesting, man. What starters do you think Howie could be willing to move in that deal? And they listed Dallas Goedert, Reed Blankenship, Jahan Dotson, Darius Slay. So obviously the big names that stick out.
I'm confused about Slay, though. Slay's a free agent, is he not?
He's not. He's just a guy that could. It's much more favorable for the Eagles financially if they cut him. If he's a casualty.
Okay. I got you.
It's much more feasible if they do it that way. But Goddard, Slay, they're the interesting ones. They're the bigger names. They're the, maybe former team captains in a sense. But Blankenship, is that not an interesting name? Like, I don't know. I didn't go into this offseason thinking like, oh, we need to replace Reed Blankenship.
Right. But again, like that's the thing, man. Like,
could see it.
To TR's point earlier, he said, think about what we just said about Daryl Moore. You have to be more than just a fan. You have to think about more than just now. But that's my like we can't I don't want to undersell who this dude is. Here's my other question for you, right? He's got 2 years left on this deal, it looks like, at 19.7 in 2025 and 20.3 in 2026, right? We remember Hassan forced his way out of here last offseason. We trade Hassan. Why did Hassan want out? He wanted a contract extension. The Jets didn't give him one at first. He held out. He wants a contract extension. Yeah. We all know and believe that Myles wants a contract extension. But is there a world that also involves him just really wanting out of Cleveland? Yeah. And if he comes to Philadelphia, he'd play 1 year on this $20 million line and then reevaluate.
Is that something that you want to, give up? draft multiple picks for a guy that he could just change his mind after one season. We don't got great facilities, right? Like, we got horrible daycare programs. Does he have any kids? Like, he wants to leave Philly after one rental year. That shit would hurt. And then he goes and signs with Washington anyways or some shit. Like,
right. Well, then it comes to my point. Well, he'd be under contract in 2026. So then it's if you move, it's just. I'm just saying.
Then it would be, are you going to trade him if he doesn't extend with
right.
you?
My point, yeah. So my thing is like,
Let me
how
ask you
bad
this.
is it the money? How bad is it I need the fuck out of Cleveland?
Let me ask you this. If the Eagles, and this is a big, big hypothetical, so just walk with me here, but if the Eagles would have won the Super Bowl with Miles Sanders or with DeAndre Swift at running back, would we feel that it's plausible to go out and spend, what was it, $14 million on Saquon Barkley? I know hindsight, without this in mind, 2,000 yards, right? Like what he could do. If we won the Super Bowl with Miles Sanders or with DeAndre Swift, we didn't, so I know it doesn't matter. But if we did, where would our mindset be? Because we did just win the Super Bowl without Myles Garrett. So I guess that's like I know it's not the same. They're two different positions. It makes me wonder the frame of mind. Like, are we doing too much to try to stay afloat when we just won the Super Bowl by 20 plus points? You know what I mean?
I agree. But here's what you got to remember, bro. But here's what you got to remember, right? It's a lock that we're losing Sweat and Milton Williams.
Yeah.
So, like, we're sitting here like, oh, Zach Baun helped us win a Super Bowl. Those two balled the fuck out in the Super Bowl, and they are guaranteed gone.
Yeah.
You got to replace.
I did see, just a side note, I did see Josh Sweat, like, on IG. Like, somebody said Sweat's gone, and he put, like, question marks under the post. That was, like, within the last 2 days. So, maybe they're talking to Sweat, seeing if they can get a hometown deal with him, but to your point, yeah, it's a great point, man. I think at the end of the day, if you ask me straight up, like Baun or Garrett, yeah, I think I'm going Garrett. If you had to give up like your first and like Jordan Davis, maybe he has to go in the deal, and you break up that little core of Georgia guys, like I would still do it.
The only thing I don't want Eagles fans to do, and I don't want to do, is understate and undervalue who the fuck that guy is. Like, I see TR's comments, our line's the best in the world. We've handled Aaron Donald. We handle Micah. Like, I get it, man. I read 14, 16. Like, oh, Zach Baun's a defensive player of the year candidate. Myles Garrett is the defensive player of the year. Every year, whether he wins the award or not, Myles Garrett is arguably the greatest defensive talent in the National Football League. Now imagine that next to Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. That's what I'm envisioning. So it's like you answered the Saquon question. Yeah, you would do that because even though we won the Super Bowl, you would say, well, Saquon is light years better than Swift or Sanders. I want to get better. That's how I feel about this. I'm still looking to get better. I'm not saying this Eagles team can't go win a Super Bowl again next year as is.
Yeah.
You add Myles Garrett to the crew. Okay. So it is tough. I don't want to lose Zach Baun. Howie the Magician, do me a favor. Go re-sign Zach Baun in the next couple of weeks. And then let this Garrett thing linger into mini camps. More disgruntled in Cleveland. Price goes down. Baun's already back. And let's see if Howie can work some magic and swing for the fences. That's my perfect scenario for this offseason. But, it's just Myles Garrett.
Yeah, no, it is. It is Myles Garrett. Like, just so we know. I guess it's just from the other side. You do want to protect the players that were here and their value.
Sure.
But I do feel you. I feel you. It's a lot of devil's advocate there. But at the end of the day, everybody's going to be happy if you have Myles Garrett on the other end of your defensive line there. He did block a kick against us last year. He didn't have a sack, but he did block a kick against the Eagles last year. So that's the type of player he is. He makes plays on special teams as well. It just comes down to compensation. That's what it always comes down to, right?
Yep.
You look at Howie.
But I think that's where fans
get
a little too caught up in themselves and playing home GM. Like, I see the WIP thing, a first, a second, and a player. Nolan Smith, obviously, we don't love that, right? If they change Nolan Smith with another player, like, let's say it is Slay or blank, whatever it is, yeah, I'm doing that 1,000% of the time. And people, I'm not giving up a first. Dude, it's Myles Garrett. Like, I get it. Howie is hitting on his draft picks, right? Quinyon, Cooper, Jalen Carter. We love them all. Are they Myles Garrett? And I'm not talking about trading any of them for Myles Garrett. I'm saying, are we going to, like, this first-round draft pick, this 32nd overall draft pick, that's our first this year. We're worried about that player instead of getting Myles Garrett. That's what I can't fall into. So
Quinyon Mitchell, I know it wasn't 32. Cooper DeJean, like, I know it wasn't 32, and it is Scotty, luck.
But here's the point.
There's a bit of luck that's in there. Here's the point,
and I love Cooper DeJean more than anybody. Cooper DeJean's not Myles. What I'm talking about, hitting on the level of talent. Like,
you mean the Super Bowl pick 6, man?
Dude, I get it.
The best coverage corner in the NFL by the numbers this year.
I'm talking about the level of player.
Cooper DeJean made a huge impact in our defense. I'm not arguing Cooper DeJean over Myles Garrett. Let me be clear here. We don't know yet, though. Like, Cooper DeJean might be a 10-time All-Pro corner.
What I'm talking about is equating the draft pick to what Myles Garrett's production is.
Yeah.
So this first and second rounder that people are going to covet, this 32nd overall pick, is that guy, because Howie has hit the last couple of years, is that guy going to sniff the best defensive player in the world?
Right.
If we draft an edge rusher, is that guy going to sniff Myles Garrett? No. Oh, I'm not. No, I'm not. No. So here's the thing that gets miscued. I'm not talking about putting Cooper DeJean in the trade. I'm talking about, Howie's hit on a second-round pick. The point, I think Scotty's point was, I'm just like, it's the second-round pick. Look what that second-round pick equated to this year. What I'm saying is, those were unknown until now. They're on, like, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell are unfucking touchable. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But is it the same thing this year going to be equivalent? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you going, to nail the first and second?
What are the odds that you're going to get that value again there as well, right? Like, if it happened last year, most likely won't happen this upcoming season. So I do. I think it's fair. I think, once again, at the end of the day, I'm presenting a lot of devil's advocate here. We don't know what Cleveland would want. We don't know if Myles Garrett has a selected, amount of teams that he would want to go to. I would imagine he wants to win. I think that's why you force yourself out of Cleveland. And if he wants out of
Cleveland that badly,
instead of taking 35 to 40 million a year, right? But I mean, Cleveland would suck. It would suck to live there. Yeah. I know Philly gets cold and shit, but Cleveland would fucking suck. But yeah, Myles Garrett, dude, nobody's gonna be upset at that number. 95.
Someone will. Some fans will be mad about we gave up too much draft compensation. We were gonna have to pay them too much. Someone will be worried about all that, and I'll just be soaking in the fact that 95 is wearing midnight green the year after we won a Super Bowl. Let's move on, man. We got about 10-ish minutes left here.
Yeah.
If you were wondering, Jesus Luzardo made his spring training debut today. 2 innings, no hits, no runs, 2 Ks against the Boston Red Sox. Obviously, Jesus Luzardo, the young pitching phenom that we traded for in the offseason, which is not the overall namesake that people were hoping for, not the splash, but what it did was give the Phillies the best starting rotation in baseball, and you can slide him right in the middle. The kid's filthy. Was injured a little bit last year. Filthy. We got about, an entire month until the opener in DC, man. But with that said, a lot to discuss when it comes to this Phillies team. I think the biggest thing we can start off by talking about, which happened in this game, although Schwarber didn't play, he played yesterday. And it's happened in a couple other games, and it was rumored this offseason that you're going to see a lineup change. And I think you have always been on the same page as me when the fan base has debated this Kyle Schwarber leadoff role for, each of the first 2 years he's been here, heading into year 3 now. Or is this 22, 23? This is year 4, is it not? Yeah, I think it is. So this is year 4. How do you feel about it? I'm going to tell you this.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I've always been against it. I've always been against the people because I've always been against the fact that he's not a leadoff hitter. Like, yeah, he's not your traditional leadoff hitter, but like I've been against people that say that, like, think about how many more RBIs you'd have if he was hitting fourth or fifth. Well, he's going to have less opportunities to hit. I was always against that.
Yeah.
With how last year ended, with the issues you've seen within the lineup, getting guys on, moving guys over, I'm open to it. And here's why. It's less for Kyle Schwarber. I think we get the best version of Trey Turner in a Phillies uniform this year, and I love Trey Turner in this leadoff spot for us. Like, I know, the first 2 years, no, keep him in the 2-hole. They asked him about it. He talked about the mindset of being first and how it's just different for him. You talk about the speed on the base paths if he's able to get on. I like it. It's not a knock on Kyle Schwarber. It's, can I get the most out of Trey this year? And I think we do finally get to see that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. If they were coming out this season and they said, we want to keep Kyle Schwarber at leadoff, I don't think I'm going to point at that as like my first complaint or anything like that. But yeah, I think it's okay to try something new with this team. And I think when you had an off season where they really, really didn't try to upgrade this lineup by a significant margin, right? You do have to make some type of shifts coming out of last season where, like we've said in the past, they've taken kind of a step back each season since reaching the World Series. Mm-hmm. So you do have to shake it up a bit. I do think when you look at the situation, right, we think of Kyle Schwarber. He is getting a little bit older as well. Yeah. So getting him the looks maybe don't matter as much as getting Trey Turner the looks on base as well. But I think the bigger thing here is, like, yes, in the past we had those huge momentum, jarring home runs to start the games, right, from Kyle Schwarber. You've had, different opportunities where he's come up with big hits at late in games, being the first guy in the lineup. But I think we've moved past that in a sense, if that makes sense, right? Like, last season, we watched it happen, and they still would lose the game, right? Maybe that's the only home run.
I mean, the game I went to, game one against the Mets, he led off the game with a nuke to the second deck, and they lost.
Yeah. So to that point, there might not be as much in that just like first power punch that we love Kyle Schwarber to be, especially at the beginning of games, just setting the tone. Yeah. That might not mean as much as what we think versus getting Trey Turner on base, right?
Agreed,
and maybe getting a multi score home run.
I think that's it. I think it's a change in philosophy. I think that's what this has to be. And
that's what I'm trying to say.
It's in their approach, it's in their at bats, and it's in the lineup change because. Look, we love the power, and I've loved the 16, 18 leadoff home runs, especially in playoff games and these big moments, right? And the dude walks 100+ times a year. So to sit here, he only hits 212. He walks 100 times. He's on base to lead off an inning a lot for you guys. So he's been a fine leadoff hitter. But the approach has to change. We love the power. We love the home runs. But it's been the knock on them each of the last 3 postseasons. It's why they've been eliminated. For Christ's sake, like, everyone focuses on the Diamondbacks and we focus on last year. They got no hit at home in the World Series because of the lineup and the philosophy. Yeah. And I think that has to change. And when Trey Turner was brought here, he was a guy, a 313 hitter, stealing bags, doing X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And he, if anything, Trey's been a little bit more explosive power-wise through stretches than he has your traditional set-the-table kind of guy. And I think this is what he kind of needs to help this Phillies team succeed most. I don't need 24 home runs from Trey Turner. Right. It's nice, but I need Trey Turner to hit 298.
Yeah,
303, like I've seen him do in the past, and set the table and steal bags, because get into a little bit more of that small ball scenario that's going to pay dividends in the postseason.
I think that's what TR's talking about. Like,
1,000%.
I think 2 things can be true at once here. Like, Kyle Schwarber moving down the lineup signals a philosophy, approach change from the lineup stance. I would imagine there's going to be an approach change as well.
And let me ask you this, man. I want to, because I think it benefits Trey. But I want to think about how it benefits Kyle as well, because like I said, Kyle has been a fine leadoff hitter, in my opinion. I know people hate it. He's not traditional. It's been fine. And the Phillies have won a lot of fucking ball games since he's been their leadoff hitter. But he is untraditional. And what does that do for his philosophy and approach as a leadoff guy, Scotty? Like, because he's got to be more like, I know, we have all the leadoff home runs, but he also has to be a little bit more conscious in his approach, right? Because he's the leadoff guy and he has to say, now you knock him down, whether it's the cleanup hitter, where I would put him cleanup most likely. Or I've seen him in the 2-hole behind Trey. I don't necessarily love that. But wherever they slide him down, maybe his approach gets to change because, hey, I don't have to worry about setting the table whatsoever. I'm looking to drive in runs, or I'm looking to do damage here. So I think it can benefit everybody from that standpoint. And they just need to do something because you didn't have the offseason people were hoping for, right? You didn't go get Juan Soto like the Mets did. You ain't got Max Kepler, which is fine. Max Kepler is another guy that is a change in their approach. He walks a lot. He has a good eye. He doesn't chase a lot. So Max Kepler's a good fit in this lineup, but he's not this namesake that everyone's banging the table for. So if you don't do anything from that regard, you have to shake whatever you have up internally. And I think that's the best way to kind of do it right now. And I love the idea of Bryce batting too behind Trey.
I was going to ask because it's just seemed from what I've been hearing, it seems like that's not going to happen. Like
I know. Well, he hit 2 today.
To Bryce hitting third. I heard he said like, I'm open to whatever, but I've always hit third. And I heard that getting picked apart, but a lot of people took that as like, I'll say this to the public, but I'm batting third. So who would be your guy at third?
I'm fine with Bryce at third. Again, it's been another area where they've won a lot of games, but it's 1 for 1 today.
Who do you want in that top 3 though? If you want Schwarber's cleaning up?
Well, in no particular order. Like I would put Trey 1, and then whether it's Bryce 2 or 3, he's one of them, obviously. And then outside of that, it's got to be Baun, which is a massive step up for him this year.
Yeah,
but you need it, right? If you were the Phillies and you haven't changed what we were hoping you would change, Alec Baun has to be productive, and he has to get back to that hitting the ball all directions type of hitter, shooting balls in the gap, being a contact guy, stop the chase shit. In a perfect world, if it's Turner, Harper, Baun, which that's exactly what it is today, and then I would put Schwarber 4 or Costi 4 and Schwarber 5, one or the other. But that's how I would go about it, man.
It is. It's interesting because maybe something like that also boosts Baum's confidence as well. I do agree though. I think it'll be nice to see a fresh approach, whether that's from lineup or just the approach at the plate this season. And I think it's going to be huge, man. To TR's point here, I know that maybe we don't feel that way. I'm kind of in between on it, right? I'm not nearly where the Sixers are. Like even coming into this season, I'm not where I was with the Sixers versus where I'm at with the Phillies was not the same going into this Sixers season before this loser ass season, right? I did have a little bit more confidence in the Phillies even before the Sixers had taken the court this year. But there is going to be maybe half the fan base that's sitting there like, this team just keeps, they're frauds, whatever the case may be. So how important is it to start fast this season, get off to a hot start,
I think it's
play some great baseball to start the season versus I've also seen concerns on the other side with this team's age within their core. Are they going to tail off in the second half of the season due to guys getting tired or worn down, different things like that? So what would be your bigger concern? Starting slow?
I would say this. The bigger concern for me would be tailing off, right? Because as much as we want a fast start and to capture our attention and get the momentum out the gate, that means nothing if in August and September and into October, you're falling apart or tailing off. Here's the issue with TR's comments. And I get it, right? Because we did a lot of pods at the end of the Philly season, and what happened cannot happen. And what happened against Diamondbacks cannot happen.
Yeah.
They're not comparable for me. And I think we've talked about this actually at the end of the Philly season, which seems like a lifetime ago for me. They're not even in the same stratosphere. Like, yeah, it's disappointing what they've done. And last year they didn't get past the second round. They had to bye, and then they, lost to the Mets, the division rival, which sucks. But let's not get it. Like, World Series, hosting a Game 7 of what would be the conference finals. Like, they're nowhere in the same stratosphere of success that the Sixers have had. And I think it gets misconstrued. Bro, I mean, what are you talking about?
I don't know, man.
What are we talking about?
Like the stratosphere? Like
Scotty.
The stratosphere?
Scotty.
Like they're not in the stratosphere? Like, I don't know, man.
No.
I feel like you're giving the Phils a little bit of grace here. Like, that was a major flop against the New York Mets in the postseason last year. And the Mets upgraded. They already beat us.
I'm not talking about the Mets. I'm not talking about the Mets.
The Braves are going to be back.
I'm talking about the last 3 years.
I feel you. They've been on a downward trajectory, though.
That would be like yeah, it is a downward trajectory. But that would be like the Sixers going to the finals, hosting a Game 7 of the conference finals, and then a second round Game 4 or Game 6 loss to the Knicks or something. They haven't gotten past the fucking second round. And last time they were in the playoffs, they lost in the first round to their rival, the Knicks, which is equivalent to the Mets. No, they're not in the same stratosphere.
But they do. They've lost to lesser talented teams, and that is where they're very similar, in my opinion.
The World Series.
The Diamondbacks are not the better team. The Mets were not the better team.
The World Series.
So what is it? Are they mental midgets? Like, what is it? What's the problem? Like, why have they crumbled the last two postseasons against teams that are clearly not as talented as they are? It doesn't make sense. And maybe that's what it is. It doesn't make sense, similar to the way the Sixers don't make sense. The Sixers just, like, the non-making sense or whatever, the lack of understanding with the Sixers, it does go a lot further, I would say, to your point.
When I say stratosphere, I'm talking about levels. Like, again, like, yeah, a flop is a flop, but a flop in the first and second round is nowhere near the success of an NBA Finals and a Game 7 of an Eastern Conference Finals in back-to-back years. We would not be talking about the Sixers in the light we do if they had the success the Phillies have. There'd be like we make jokes about it. They can't get past the second round. Joel Embiid has never been to a conference finals. Never been to a conference finals. And we're going to talk about them in the same light as a World Series and a games. Yes, it was a letdown, and it was a flop against Arizona. And last year was like, I'm not excusing it, but those two teams, man.
Like, if like, for example, when the Sixers lose to the Celtics in the second round, if the Phillies lost to the Dodgers in the second round last postseason, or if they just lost to the Dodgers in the postseason, I think we would be a lot cooler with that, with the Phillies than the Mets. And the Celtics are comparable, right? Like, to the Dodgers, like they're of that status.
You're going to act like there's not levels of success. Like, yeah, the ultimate goal is to win it all. But when I'm talking, you brought up the comparison of the two teams and the disappointment.
Yeah.
Can't get past the second round. World Series and Game 7 of the what would be the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, it's not close. And again, we're taking it way too far.
Feels like participation points. Like,
come on, bro. Come on, man.
Like if the Sixers went on the trajectory of NBA Finals, Eastern Conference Finals, first round exit, I don't think we would be holding them in this high regard. Like, I don't think that we would. I just don't think so. I don't think so.
I mean, I think we totally would.
Like, the NBA Finals would be 3 years ago now.
Yeah, I get it. But, like, again, haven't been past the second round. Like not like I don't know if we're grasping how big the difference is in second round exit and finals loss just 3 years ago. Like we would be if Joel Embiid took this team to a Game 7 Eastern Conference Finals against Boston, and then a letdown last year. Joel Embiid would not be talked about in the light, and the organization would not be talked about in the light we're speaking of him right now.
Maybe not. Maybe
no,
not.
Definitely not.
Maybe within our fan base, yes, but outside of the fan base, probably not, unless he wins it. I think what you're speaking to is like it's almost like a low standard, in my opinion, for Philly sports. Like we just get to the World Series, like that's good enough for us because we don't do it that often. Like the Sixers, just get to the finals. We don't do it that often.
I don't think
that's not good enough.
You know
what I mean?
I agree. It's not good enough.
You're comparing them head to head. I do get you.
When you bring up the two franchises equally
head to head, yeah,
they are not in the same conversation in terms of success. Yes, it's not the overall success. I'm not just happy to be here, but whatever. And the thing that I want to end the show on, and I'll hear the comment TR, but the thing I wanted to say before this all started with the Sixers is just from a Phillies perspective, and they are on a downward trajectory, and I have ripped them each and every time they have let us down. Yep. And Dombrowski did not go out and make humongous moves. The Phillies are a top 5 team in baseball. Like, let's not misconstrue that. Heading into the 2025 season, they are a top 5 roster in baseball. You have the Dodgers for certain, which is the most frustrating thing because it feels like why even play the season with what they have? So that's the annoying part. You have the Dodgers. If healthy, you could say the Braves if you want. You can argue the Mets are with them. And the Yankees, potentially. There's no one else out in the American League that you could say are better than the Phillies. There's no one else in the national. They are a top 4 or 5 team in baseball with this, and yeah, they didn't make the changes in, we wanted Bregman instead of Bohm this year. We wanted Arenado instead of Bohm. That didn't happen. Max Kepler is a 275, 280 hitter, 20 plus home runs. People aren't going to fall in love with the move. They have the best rotation in baseball. Like with the Luzardo ad, it is bona fide. It's not close. It's the best rotation in baseball. Andrew Painter's on his way up. Romano's a solid, they're a top 5 team. That's where I would leave it. Like, will they win a World Series? I don't know. Can they compete for a World Series? Yes. But TR, I'm talking. We're talking in comparison with another franchise. The Phillies don't have grace to me. Like I think that's where it's getting misconstrued. The Phillies don't get any grace from me for getting to the World Series and having success. The Phillies get grace from me in comparison.
That's fair.
To that team.
And that's how I feel. The
Eagles get grace compared to that team.
Yeah.
So that's the point. That's what I'm trying to get at.
And I do. I think like the Eagles persevering, going out, winning the Super Bowl. I think this makes it like a huge season for the Phillies. Not from a standpoint of like all the fans and the pressure on them to win the World Series, but it's more or less in the sense of like, if we don't at least lose to the Dodgers, the fan base is gonna give up on this core. Yeah. Like if they haven't already, right?
And that's what we're facing. Season. And I think to one of your points earlier about the age, that's only going to continue to climb true. So yeah, there's a window. Like most certainly, they need to get the job done. No one's excusing that. I just got a little, I'm just saying, we started the show with a half hour of talking about that team, and then it got brought up oh, are they the same? And it's because when you do that, it feels like you're propping that shit organization up too far for me.
Yeah.
With what's going on right now. So,
yeah.
All right. I like it, though. I like the fire.
It's just devil's advocate, man. We got to have these convos. I think at the end of the day, we probably are in the same spot.
Correct.
It is. It's just one of those things, man. It's like the Celtics. It's like the Oklahoma City Thunder right now in the NBA, where you just have these like one or two teams that are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the Phillies' fault per se, in a sense.
Well, the Dodgers thing is
right?
very frustrating, and we're going to see how it
Yeah.
plays out over the year. But I mean, like, all right, so the Dodgers are the perfect example of why you go trade for Myles Garrett. The Dodgers win a World Series and then go and get everyone and their mother.
Yeah.
Now, I know baseball, no cap.
The cap, it's different. But still.
What I'm saying is like, oh, well, we won without this, so do we? Yeah, you might want to go do
that. I do.
Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this Friday edition of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitter. We will be back on Monday night talking more Phillies, more Sixers, more everything. This is a little bit of a dead time, but a lot of conversations that we're
having fun with it, though.
Yes,
we're having fun with it. Last two shows over an hour.
March tomorrow, which means the madness is approaching. So we'll start to get some March Madness and bracket talk as well on the show. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM, have a great rest of your weekend.
Peace, everybody.